Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ben Vicarage on this Thursday morning. Good to see you. I hope you had a lovely couple of days and hope this finds you well and cheerful. And thank you for being with us for our Bible reflection this morning through the book of Hosea. Before we do chapter 12, I hope you enjoyed chapter 11. It is a superb chapter. If you haven't look at that one yet, do look at it again. It's an absolute beauty, Hosea chapter 11. And today we are in another fascinating chapter, which is chapter 12. Though actually, I'm going to start reading it at chapter 11, verse 12, which I think they actually haven't probably cut the chapters very well here. So I'm going to go from chapter 11, verse 12, and the whole of chapter 12. Ephraim has surrounded me with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit. But Judah still walks with God, and is faithful to the Holy One. Ephraim herds the wind, and pursues the east wind all the day long. They multiply falsehood and violence. They make a treaty with Assyria, and oil is carried to Egypt. The Lord has made an indictment against Judah, and will punish Jacob according to his ways, and repay him according to his deeds. In the womb he tried to supplant his brother, and in his manhood he strove with God. He strove with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought his favour. He met him at Bethel, and there he spoke with him. The Lord, the God of hosts, the Lord is his name. But as for you, return to your God. Hold fast to love and justice. Await continually for your God. A trader in whose hands are false balances, he loves to oppress. Ephraim has said, I am rich. I've gained wealth for myself. All of my gain, no offence has been found in me that would be sin. I am the Lord your God from the land of Egypt. I will make you live again in tents, and in the days of the appointed feasts. I spoke to the prophets. It was I who multiplied visions, and through the prophets I will bring destruction. In Gilead there is iniquity. They shall surely come to nothing. In Gilgal they sacrifice bulls, so their altars shall be like stone heaps on the furrows of the field. Jacob fled to the land of Aram. There Israel served for a wife. There for a wife he guarded sheep. By a prophet the Lord brought Israel up from Egypt, and by a prophet he was guarded. Ephraim has given bitter offence, so his Lord will bring his crimes down on him, and pay him back for his insults. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, so in this chapter, essentially it's in kind of four bits. First, you've kind of got chapter 11, verse 12 through to chapter 12, verse 1, kind of setting the scene, really, what this chapter's about. Then you've got verses 2 to 6, you've got 7 to 9, and you've got 10 to the end. Essentially, there's four sections in this chapter. The first one kind of sets us down. It reminds us, of course, that as from the days of Rehoboam, who was the king after Solomon, who was the one after David, the kingdom had been split in half. You've got Israel in the north, otherwise known as Ephraim in the north, and you've got Judah in the south. They're kind of the two bits. They've been split in half. And generally speaking, Israel went rotten faster than Judah. So Israel eventually was taken into exile in 721 BC, and Judah was taken into exile in 587. So Ephraim went rotten rather quicker than Judah. And it was to the Israelites, the one that rotted quicker, that Hosea speaks. That's his address. And here in verses, the chapter 11, verse 12 through to chapter 12, verse 1, you've kind of got the scene. You've got Ephraim, that's the northern kingdom, surrounding me with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit. Okay. Then it goes on to say, but Judah walks with God and is faithful to the Holy One. There's some dispute about that. It reads on this reading, it reads as though Israel's rotten, Ephraim's rotten, but Judah's still walking with God. That's not a great translation. There's some thought actually that's the original, that's the Septuagint, the Greek version, that the original Hebrew said that that Judah's walking fast and loose with God. So there's some contention about that one. But either way, anyway, Israel's gone completely rotten. It's full of lies and deceit, and Judah's kind of not far behind. And not only is it full of lies and deceit, Israel has also made a treaty with Assyria and always carried to it. So in other words, they've made alliances with people they shouldn't have made alliances. And rather than trusting in God, they've trusted in their own, what they consider to be their own diplomatic skills instead, which of course came back later to sting them later when they were taken into exile. So the first couple of verses in this chapter kind of set the scene really as to what's going on. There's corruption, there's faithless to God. There is lies and everything else. They made dodgy alliances and so on, and that sets the scene. So you've got the two kingdoms, Israel and Judah. Israel rotten faster than Judah. And it's Israel that Hosea is speaking to. Right, then in the rest of the chapter, what Hosea does here is he talks about the situation that the people are in, and he reminds the people what's happened in the Old Testament before. Their story is the story of God's people, and he goes back and looks back at what you might call the history of God's people as to what's happened. So verses 2 to 6, he talks there about a kind of in the past how God's helped them. Now, originally, of course, and it goes back to a guy called Jacob, okay? Now, it's interesting because Jacob actually had two names. His first name was Jacob, which means usurper or cheat, and Israel means one who strives. Strives really in a good way, striving after God. And what happens really with Jacob is he starts off, if you track his life, he starts off as Jacob. He starts off hanging on to trying to usurp his brother, hanging on to his heel as he comes out of the womb. Twice he cheats his brother out of his birthright and so on. I mean, poor old Esau really does get a bum rap from Jacob. And I think Esau says at one point, how long is he going to be allowed to cheat me? In other words, how long is he going to be allowed to Jacob me is the literal translation. So he starts off as Jacob. And then through various things in his life, and in particular, he met God at a place called Bethel. That amazing scene in Genesis chapter 28, when he sees the amazing word, Jacob's ladder, this ladder from earth to heaven. And Jacob sees this in his dream. And Jacob goes from being Jacob to being Israel. And Israel's one who wrestles with God all night and prevailed actually as well. And what he's saying is, you started off as Jacob and you became Israel. It was God who did that to you. It was God who did. It was God's work in you that made that happen. Therefore, we're saying to the people now in Hosea's day, remember, it was God who helped you then, so turn to God to help you now. Okay, the Lord, the God of hosts, the Lord is his name. But as for you, return to God, hold fast, Israel, you might say, to love and justice, and wait continually for your God. So he's saying, as God turned Jacob into Israel, a cheat into a striver, you need today, remember that let God do that for you today. Let God turn you, people from Hosea's day, from being cheats into being people who strive after God instead. That's the first bit. The second verses 7 to 9 is really talking about oppression. And he talks about the fact that Israel or Ephraim are now oppressing the people, their people. And he reminds them, of course, and he's saying that they're saying to themselves, they're very proud, they're saying, I am rich now, look at my amazing achievements. And he's reminding them, of course, that when the days back in Egypt, back in the days of Moses, when they were slaves, it was God through Moses who rescued them. So what he's saying is, don't be proud, don't think you've got it all for yourself. Remember, it was God who helped the people then, and it's God who's helped you now. So again, turn back to the Lord your God. That's kind of really important too. Then in the last few verses 10 to the end, he's really talking there about the kind of where they're at, and again, what God did again to Jacob, and how Jacob had run away. There's one bit in life when Jacob's down on his, I would say down on his luck, but you know what I mean. Jacob falls in love with a woman called Rachel, and he and her father makes him work for 7 years for him. Then, of course, when it comes to the wedding day, the nights are dim or something, so he sends his ugly sister in instead, and he ends up marrying the wrong girl by mistake. And Laban, their father, makes him work for another 7 years as well. And of course, that's the situation that you could be in. But he's reminding the people there. But it's the prophet who brought Israel up from Egypt and guarded them. It was a prophet who guarded them, and it was a prophet who saved Jacob. It was a prophet who saved Moses and the people then. So what he's really saying here is, don't rely on yourselves. Don't think we're terribly, terribly clever. It was God who helped Jacob. It was God who helped Moses. It was God who helped the people then. And it's the God who will help you now. And there's a massive message there. He said, instead of looking for yourselves, instead of looking for your own, looking and thinking how clever we are, instead of looking at how clever we are with our alliances and so on and so on and so on, instead remember, it was God who saved you then. and it's God who will save you now. So turn to God, for in him is goodness, in him is love. And I suppose the message here for us, my friends, today in 2024, Penn and wherever you're watching from today, is that actually the same is true then. The same is true now. That it is God who is our hope. God is our strength and refuge. He is our sure stronghold. He's the one that we should be turned to. And instead of looking to our own pride today, my goodness, we need to look to God. And I have to say, I think it's a message which is as relevant now as it's ever been, that we need to remember that all things come from God and that he is our hope. But the other thing to say is, as for God's people in Hosea's time, needed to know that the stories were their stories for now. Actually, the stories of the Bible are our story today too. This isn't just their story, it's our story today. And the message of the Bible, the message of God's love, the message of God's people, the message of the word of God in the scriptures, my goodness, is as relevant now as it's ever been. Friends, I hope that makes sense. I've done my best to try and scan through salvation history of God's people, the relevance of it, about the importance of, instead of thinking I'm all right, Jack and Hans are clever, instead we should be giving glory to God, remembering all good things come from him. And let's let the people, the stories of the scriptures be our stories today. Friends, have a lovely day. Thank you for watching. God bless you.